to the Nutrimedical report, and of course we still have our big sale going on from last Friday right through midnight to tonight, and the next big sale, 7 for Heaven sale, will be in over Labor Day in early September. So get those orders in, 888-212-8871, or order online. And of course we provide, if you call and you're a customer, which just means you've ordered something within 6 months, you can get a phone call back. Everyone, including even non-customers, can email and ask a question about what products would be recommended for their condition. So all you have to do is just drop an email, anybody that's listening, or if you're a customer, just call and we will return your call. I'll return your call. So we have it's the heat of summer going on. Actually, we've got a pretty strange summer here in Southern California. It's very cloudy. We've had some rain, usually 1 or 2 days a week, although not real heavy, but we have some rain. I wish they would see the clouds more so we get more rain because we have a lot of cloud. And it's cooler than usual down here. What people are doing now, of course, they're trying to be much more physically active. They don't want to get injured. They want to heal their joints. An awful lot of people have tried all kinds of other products. We have lots of, we call X, longevity, X, GNC, X, whatever vitamin companies, because people are just told that they're with whiz-bang vitamins will heal and cure anything, which is total garbage. You have to take the targeted metabolic nutraceuticals for your particular health condition, and it can change, which is why I tell people to tell me as a health professional exactly what their problem is. And if they have a QRMA machine or ADLRS or a bioplasm, we have those as well, and the Metatron, they can send me the information, or I can log onto their computer and look at their actual data along with their wellness history, or if they put in one of those consult forms as well. So there's a lot more science to it. In other words, it's and I don't call it alternative medicine. When I hear about the word alternative, it drives me nuts, because this is not an alternative. This is the completion of medicine. This is the integration of functional living pathology with medical care, which means it's going to cut down on the drugs. Right now, currently, I would say we replace probably 80% of the drugs in the medical system, plus maybe 90%. And it's not the too distant future where basically pretty well all the drugs will be completely replaced by natural molecules. And I believe that there's a natural molecule out there, and that's why we search around the world for the very best. And we have 7-star delivery systems, the activated forms of every nutraceutical. So you can't compare these to things like longevity and GNC and Vitacost, and they just flog out a specific supplement without a way of even verifying that it works, for example. When we take, we recommend, for example, that people take a specific supplement for their heart. I had a gentleman the other day, had atrial fibrillation, and the first thing we want to do is optimize their magnesium glycinate malate, magnesium taurate, and I usually recommend a 2-to-1 of glycinate to the taurate. 4 glycinate twice a day, 2 taurate twice a day. Cardiovasc, which is going to improve the microcirculation, detox, etc. Ellagic acid to repair the vessel walls. Omega Supreme krill for the artery and vessel walls, and Omega Supreme for DHA, and then very important things like forskolin, which is Coleus forskolii. Some of the most important things are anti-inflammatories to reduce blood viscosity, like nattokinase. When you have somebody with atrial fibrillation, the first thing you want to think of is how can we restore physiology to the body? How can we restore nitric oxide, for example, with Supernox, 2 tablets 3 times a day? So, Clay, let's talk about some of these things of what is involved with trying to get people back on track.
Sure. Well, explain a little bit more about what is atrial fibrillation. What is it?
Atrial fibrillation is where the upper chamber of the heart just quivers instead of firing off an organized set of pulses. Let's say 75 to 150 beats a minute, and then it goes what's called the atrial node to the ventricular node, and the ventricles respond. So you get an atrial kick to the ventricular contraction to push the blood up. So the left atrium, for example, gives a kick to the contraction at the right of the left ventricle, and then it pushes the blood to the aorta. And of course, the vessels themselves also have to contract, which means they have to have adequate nitric oxide for that to happen. And you can test that with Berkeley test strips in the back of your tongue. And if it's just slightly pink, it means it's depleted. If it's nice and pink, it means it's pretty good. If it's not in the pretty good range, you're in trouble. because nitric oxide is a major driver to protect your brain and your blood vessels and your ability of your heart to contract and your blood vessel walls to have normal activity and your capillary vascular bed not to be in spasm. So atrial fibrillation.
Is that why magnesium is so important to it?
Yeah, it is. And the main thing is the ion channels. That's why gamma E plus is important. You're trying to repair the ion channels so that the person can have a normal contractility. Calcium kicks in the contraction, magnesium terminates it, otherwise you get a tonic contraction and can't relax. And that's not a good situation at all. Right?
Would a CoQ10 Supreme be something beneficial for that condition?
Yes, CoQ10 Supreme is the only non-crystallizing CoQ10. And, of course, we always recommend the CoQ10 ubiquinol because the CoQ10 doesn't last long. So you want the reserve form, too. So I usually recommend a 2-to-1 ratio. If you're taking, say, 4 CoQ10 in the morning and 4 in mid-afternoon if you have a heart condition, you'll take 2 of the CoQ10 ubiquinol twice a day. And you also want to take a special form of carnitine called propionyl L-carnitine called VascuCare. The form of carnitine used for the bowel is called IBS Care, which is a slow release for normalizing peristaltic contractions of your gut. So your bowel is in normal waves of contraction. So yeah, the CoQ10 Supreme is extremely important. Everybody, all the other competitors basically aren't competitors because they're not even on the track, as they say. I used to be a track runner. And the CoQ10 Supreme basically doesn't crystallize. It's the only one in the industry will not crystallize. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And then, of course, the high bioavailability of CoQ10 ubiquinol, which, by the way, the ubiquinol form is the one that's been researched as being most protective of the brain and of regenerating gums. So if you want to regenerate your gums, you take the ubiquinol form, bite into it a couple times a day, and hold that in your mouth. And if taking a couple of those twice a day, along with our other supplements like our Cognition Plus, Brain Power, Nutrifos and Neurogen will keep your myelination pathways and so on, and BioLVR. So CoQ10 ubiquinol is interesting, isn't it? It's quite a few different actions, and it's a reserve form, and it's a good balance to have both, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's nice to have both. And the Supreme, the regular Supreme I really like as well because, like you mentioned, it's a crystal-free form. If you go to the health food store, maybe one of the big box chain stores, and buy their CoQ10, a lot of times you'll open up the capsule and feel it, and it's granulated, almost like salt or sugar. And as a result, it's not well absorbed because of that. And about 1% absorbed, actually. Well, this form of CoQ10 that you have in the CoQ10 Supreme is about 9 to 10% absorbed. So if you want to go, you think you're saving money going to the big box chains and buying that, but you're going to have to take 10 for every one, the ones you have.
Right.
10 of theirs. And so it is a
total difference
to go buy those.
We've had many people who have had serious hypertension, were syndrome X in congestive heart failure, and we pulled them out, and the doctors were boggled. They say, this is impossible. How can this happen? Well, it's because we're dealing with the metabolism problem, rather than, which is what I call living pathology. That's why I don't like the term a complementary medicine. This isn't complementary. This is completion. This is biochemistry, intermediate metabolism, nutritional, immunology. I mean, it has nothing to do with saying it's complementary. It's complementary to those people that are still stupid. They're not properly trained in these areas, which would add another 2 to 3 years of medical school training, and it would probably eliminate a lot of people who pretend that they really understand these things and are graduating and even becoming what I call procedurists, doing all kinds of medical procedures, but they don't understand the underlying physiology and biochemistry. We'll be back in just a moment with play, and if you have any questions too, coming up in the next couple segments, it's open lines on wellness issues this morning. 800-259-5791, 800-259-5791. Back in just a moment with Clay. Back in Clay. One of the other areas that's very common is a lot of people think, well, I've taken vitamin XYZ, from GNC, Longevity, whatever. They haven't gotten better. They're real mad. They also tried to turn it into some kind of a business or multi-level. I mean, don't do that, okay? That's not a wise thing to do because, first off, unless you're trained as a health professional, you don't understand when you're giving somebody a nutritional supplement, you have to understand their genetics, their medical history, the specific intermediate metabolism problems, detoxification. I had a question here earlier from a gentleman who was quoting someone else. He quoted Dr. Brownstein about thyroid. Now, Brownstein has some books published, and he has better knowledge than the average doctor, but his level of knowledge on the thyroid is kindergarten compared to mine. And when he says that someone reacted to germicidal iodine and he's worried about our Nutrimedical, it's ridiculous. Nutrimedical is a monoatomic form of iodine. It has no antigenic components, none. We're not talking about seaweed or something that has a chemical attached side group to cause a hapten reaction by attaching to body proteins and producing an allergic reaction. So you got to stop thinking that you've got some other expert out there that knows more than these things than I do. It's just a waste of your time to put you in danger. This person was going to use Nutrimedical to stop a black widow spider bite. I'm thinking you need to slather that on the wound and take it internally like crazy, or you're going to get a necrotic tissue problem and end up with a plastic surgeon or a lot worse. So it's one of the things I find frustrating is a lot of people want to turn nutritional supplements into, I'm going to just sell this or that vitamin and make a business out of it. No, please don't. Because if you don't understand the difference even in a person's metabolism, what they need, what they can tolerate, it's a lot more complicated than that. You don't have the training. Don't do it. And don't try to second guess and thinking, well, I've listened to enough programs and I've gone to and listened to enough shows elsewhere. I'm now an expert. Don't be a Google genius. You can't be. You're going to learn if you're listening closely how to be a good person to take care of your own health and to be cautious about a number of things. And we have some really good people that have listened for a long time. But don't presume that you know more than me. And that's not to slight you. It's to say, please don't do something dangerous. I don't presume I know more than my dentist, Dr. Jeffrey Curbs, who's both a top-notch biological and cosmetic dentist. But regarding toxicology or mercury or anything else, nobody can touch me, okay? Period. Now, that may seem arrogant, but it's there to tell you, if you want to listen and get good advice, please don't go off and think that you're going to get good advice elsewhere and you're going to somehow second guess. You're going to put yourself in danger by taking things that won't address your health condition, and you're going to waste a lot of money. And we see this all the time. People, they've gone elsewhere. They say they want to support other groups. We need to support here at Nutrimedical. That's how we stay on the air. That's how we provide all this free advice to people. That's how we provide wellness conditions and so on for our customers, which are anybody that purchases even one bottle of something within 6 months. And free callbacks, I mean, it takes a lot of my time working day and night, literally 7 days a week. I worked over the weekend, too, by the way, trying to respond to people and try to put up information that's valid. So when people think, well, they can know 1,000th of a centillion of what I know, and all of a sudden they're an expert, it's irritating and it's also dangerous. Where people will combine medical drugs and nutritional things and think that they're going to do well. No, you're not going to do well because you don't have the knowledge. And if you study the wellness conditions, I give a basic bump, take this. I don't give a big, long dissertation to explain it because it would take too long, and it's basically for what I call not entry level. It's for like a post-doctoral, post-MD, post-PhD kind of level. If you're going to go into the really deep stuff, like all weekend I was researching on hyperbaric oxygen and nitric oxide metabolism and ways to protect vascular and brain health, etc. I will distill that down to some key protocols, but I'm not going to give a PhD level presentation. It's just not good for you. But don't presume that, say, hey, I want to get the adrenal support. Well, that's why when I tell people adrenals, almost always your thyroid needs to be supported too. Clay, let's talk about that for a minute. Adrenal support and mitothyroid. Also recommend our monoatomic iodine, which, by the way, can never, ever, ever cause an allergic reaction. You can't. You can react to betadine. You can react to all kinds of other garbage like iota caps, iodoral, etc., which are inferior forms of iodine. They're not. They're complexed. And then you need to take mitothyroid that has thyroid, adrenal, and hypothalamus. And you also probably should do functional medicine testing to find out if you're in the proper range with levels of reverse T3, and these are in the free forms, a TSH and a gerotherm thermometer core body temperature test and chart in order to know if you're actually working and checking your adrenal hormones. So let's talk about adrenal support and thyroid because it's very common. Low energy levels are very common as well. what I want people to understand is we're not playing around here to try to market you into having a placebo effect. We want you to actually physically get better, whether it's healing your joints so you don't need a joint replacement, or cleaning your arteries so you don't need a bypass. Keep protecting your brain so you don't end up demented and drooling in a wheelchair and in a extended care facility. So, Clay, let's talk about adrenal and thyroid for a minute.
Sure. Mitothyroid, it's really, if you look at the research for what natural support you can get for the thyroid, everything that I read in the research is found here in the product of mitothyroid. You have iodine, selenium, dulce, thyroid freeze-dried from New Zealand, adrenal freeze-dried from Argentina, which are the cleanest sources on the planet, Irish moss, L-tyrosine, anterior pituitary, bladder, spleen, and thymus. So very comprehensive in supporting the thyroid.
Right.
Now, why do you think it's important to get some of these adrenals or these freeze-dried forms of the glandulars from places like New Zealand and Argentina?
Because it has to be BSE-free, or bovine spongiform encephalitis proteins free, or you put yourself at risk of getting BSE, which has a usual incubation period of around 7 years before you start to end up with your brain turning into sponge.
Scary.
Very scary. People need to understand this. And also the thing is that they're even told by the doctor, my doctor gave me levothyroxine and Synthroid. Really? Your doctor is a stupid sack of bones. How the hell can he think that you're going to correct your thyroid when you give a pre-hormone and you can't convert it with 7 minerals necessary and other cofactors in the autonomic nervous system to convert it from T4 to T3, which is 4,000 times more avidly attached to the crista galli of the mitochondria? How? You know why? Because he doesn't know. Doctors 50 years ago that were giving glandulars knew more because they checked the clinical status of the patient, the cracking of their side of their eyebrows, the dryness of their skin, their appearance, the turgor of the skin indicating myxedema, etc. And these clinical signs were better signs than a stupid lab test because they measure, well, your T4 looks pretty good, and T3 looks okay, and TSH means nothing. If your reverse thyroid hormone's high, your TSH is useless. So if you want to correct this stuff, and you want to get your adrenals on track and not burn them out, and of course you burn them out if you're taking steroids for years, your adrenals eventually crash, and also your sexual hormones because they're made from the same base molecules, DHEA and pregnenolone. We'll be back in a moment. Your questions on any health issue, 800-259-5791, and the 7 for Heaven sale is on. 800-259-5791 if you have any wellness or health question. And the lines are open now. If you have trouble contacting that number, or if you're online too long, or you're not getting answered, call our 888 line, 888-212-8871, and they will pass it through to me from the offices here. We want to talk about some of the other wellness issues. Over the weekend I did a lot of research on nitric oxide, and it's very important to maintain normal vessel health. We have, of course, ellagic acid, omega supreme krill, we have bio-LVR. It turns out that quercetin, which is also in our supplements, is very important for vascular health in your blood vessel walls, for stopping singlet oxygen. In diabetics, it's particularly important to stop singlet levels with carnosine. And I tell people it's important to realize that a lot of the issues that are going on in the body are pretty straightforward biochemistry. You can test to see if you're taking an adequate dosage of nitrates, which are things like beet juice, in your diet, with our Supernox, and of course our other supplements to try to increase nitric oxide metabolism. Vein Away is particularly helpful, as well as the Supernox, and the use of ultrathymine B1 and bio-LVR in order to maintain high levels of tetrahydrobiopterin in your artery walls. The use of semethyl, powermethyl B12, and superfolate will maintain your levels of tetrahydrobiopterin, which maintain blood vessel health and reduces insulin resistance. When you stop free radicals with things like our NutriComplete, which is the goji berry juice. We have, of course, the most powerful antioxidant, NutriDefense, the anhydrous catechin, polyphenol, and, of course, the astaxanthin, which we have the only form of astaxanthin in the world that actually has proven by high-pressure chromatography to be present in the soft gel capsules. So when you're taking these things, you stop free radical damage. A lot of the interference with the normal insulin receptor It's caused oxidative stress in tissues, and in fact, the damage to the nitric oxide synthase enzyme, the inducible nitric oxide, that forms the NO or nitric oxide that allows your blood vessels to relax. You get a peristaltic wave of contraction of the small vessels that pushes the blood around your body. It's very important to maintain levels of nitric oxide. Also found out that we have a synergism between mild hyperbaric oxygen and ozone therapy, and we have a new ozone machine that will be coming on here very shortly, probably this week. And it'll be more powerful than the Go Healthy Next machine we had earlier in the year, and a considerably better savings in price in terms of the value of the machine. So that's coming on in the next few days, and I will have that posted up on the Nutrimedical. Last week we posted also the Metatron, and for those people who have previously purchased also our Bioplasm NLS last year, we have an upgrade chip that's available for that, and you can contact me if you do have a Bioplasm and you want to get the upgraded software. Do contact me directly on that issue, because I have upgraded software available from the company that makes our Bioplasm NLS. We also have the 8D LRIS and the Metatron from the Russian Space Agency, which is Dr. Nestorov and the Nonlinear Institute in Moscow. So those technologies are available. It's important to think that we're kind of connecting with scientists and doctors and people around the world that are experts in these areas to try to help get you well. One of the most important things I tell people is start off simple, something like take life support for yourself and your children. My wife Michelle can't start a day without her glass of Ageless and life support, and of course she takes her Allison Med every day, Collagen Max every day, which is why Michelle is so healthy and also just looks great. She doesn't show signs of aging because she takes all her supplements. And that's important for you to understand. Aging really is a process of accumulated micro damage that eventually results in macro damage, or decreased collagen in your skin, elastin, decreased bone strength, decreased mentation, decreased liver detoxification capacity. And when you take the right nutraceuticals like Anti-Age Max, Nutritrel, and Regenerex, and you stimulate PGC1 alpha and you pathways that make new mitochondria with mitothyroid and nutriodine and selenium, which is very important for glutathione peroxidase, but also the enzymes that regulate nitric oxide. So if you're selenium deficient, you're not going to make enough nitric oxide as well. When we look at supplements such as berberine, berberstatin, clears the gut of pathogenic bacteria and yeast and fungi, and with Allison Med, and those are my 1-2 punch I recommend. When you want to recolonize your lower bowel, again, you want to get rid of the small bowel overgrowth with those two. You want to recolonize the lower bowel with Living Probiotic and Living Probiotic Ultra. If you got maldigestion, you want to restore normal stomach acid and pepsin production with Digestes and normal digestive enzymes with Gastrozyme, which work at a very broad pH range because they're non-animal based. And that's important. We found new applications for treating not only detoxification but blood vessel health, and also detoxification of heavy metals, and reversing depression with BioLVR. BioLVR, very important, along with Posinol, Calm Mind, and Brain Mag as well. Posinol, the BioLVR supports the normal conversion of amino acids to the neurotransmitters that correct depression. So it's better for you to make them yourself than to try to block the postsynaptic inhibition, uptake, and destruction of them with powerful and dangerous drugs called antidepressants, which don't really fix the neurotransmitter level. They try to block the breakdown. We have nutraceuticals for correcting your bladder. Bladder Up, which is a pumpkin seed extract, and Swedish flower pollen, which is a normal alpha-1 blocker. It's very common to hear people have bladder problems and kidney problems. In fact, I just was reviewing the literature on what to do to correct diabetic nephropathy. And I tell people vein away, ellagic acid, omega supreme krill, antioxidants like NutriDefense, all very helpful for the kidney, and ultrathymine B1 and carnosine. Carnosine stops cross-linking of the proteins that cause damage to the glomeruli and the filtration mechanism. So that helps tremendously. We have, of course, the Cognition Plus and Brain Power, which is vinpocetine. We have Synaptin, which is another add-on to our triad of Cognition Plus, Brain Power, and Synaptin. We can help reverse myelination delay in the brain, which happens in dementia or in things like Down syndrome or other quote disorders that disturb normal myelination. In fact, you can look at the myelination pathway in the brain and it gives you an idea of IQ. There's a direct correlation to the intelligence quotient and the layer of myelination. And drugs like HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors that are given, like Zocor, Lipitor, have anti-inflammatory effects, but they also damage the normal production of the cerebrosides and gangliosides that actually form your myelin sheath around your nerves. So you actually dysmyelinate, and you can get a dysmyelinating dementia, which is a toxic dementia. We had Dr. Graveline, who was a NASA MD, who was put on these drugs 4 or 5 years ago. He was on the program, and he talked about the fact of how it caused him to get transient global amnesia. So don't do that. There's a number of drugs that are on Dr. Deagle's hit list that you do never, ever take for anybody, anytime, period. Things like amiodarone, things like calcium channel blockers, things like HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors, and antidepressants, antipsychotics. None of these drugs are safe for anyone. Can-C. If you want to try to protect your eyes, Can-C eye drops, Vision Max, and of course we recommend to stop cross-linking in the eye as well, Carnosine, Nutritrala, and Regenerex. And of course to remyelinate the nerve fiber tracts at the back of the optic nerve head, Omega Supreme Krill, ellagic acid, and things to stop the free radical cell detox, glutathione. Is very important for the hydroperoxy radical and the carnosine for the singlet oxygen. So that gives you some ideas. There's a lot of science behind these protocols. When I just go core, advanced, and technology, there's a lot more science behind it. And I'll put some of those in discussions with live stream embedded in the products, so you'll be able to see a lot more information and hear it. We'll be back in a moment. Your questions, 800-259-5799 are available for wellness topics only, 800-259-5791. And if you can't get through in that line, call our order line, 888-212-8871. With Mitzi and Chris are on the phone today for the first half, and then Michelle will be on this afternoon. She'll be back and answering any of your questions as well. It's important to look at some of the latest nutraceutical solutions that we were talking about in terms of how they work. For example, CarboBlock. It lowers the peak sugar, so it's also going to lower the glycation or cross-linking of proteins, which can disturb and destroy enzymes, for example, that make nitric oxide, that allow the insulin receptor to be messed up. So CarboBlock is very important. We also have lactose blocker, the only neutral pH lactase that actually will block milk sugar, lactose, which is glucose and galactose. And milk sugar is bad for you, and it's 98% of the population does not have the enzymes to break it down properly, so it's properly absorbed before it causes dysbiosis in the lower bowel. We have anti-inflammatories like Cell Defense, the first form in the world of a slow-release, time-release form of curcumin with higher absorbability because it has bioperin, a special black pepper extract. It is not highly absorbed, but it's one of the most important single nutraceuticals on the planet. We have cell detox glutathione, which will actually protect your eyes, your central nervous system, your liver from hydroperoxy radical and hydroxyl radical. Cell detox glutathione is so powerful, it's mind-boggling. And I tell people if you have any problem with things like diabetes, retinal problems, neuropathy, inflammatory changes around your body, vessel problems, you want to be on cell detox glutathione. We have Keeler Max. A lot of people say, well, I want to take bentonite, clay, and don't. You'll block your bowel. You'll bother diverticuli, which are basically the little pouchings of your gut, and the fecalus, which are undigestible fiber in them. You want to take Keeler Max, and if you want to take any additional, I would take our Ultra Zeolite, 13 drops 3 times a day. Keeler Max, usually 2 to 3 capsules twice a day. And you want to take, of course, Minerals Plus and Vitamineral Max, because you're also going to be pulling out some of the good minerals as well as the bad when you're getting rid of the mercury and tin and all the other garbage that's in your food, air, and water. Chromium cruciferate, this is going to help dramatically improve the GLUT4 transporter and insulin resistance, along with things like leptin metabolic, biotin plus, and diabetoline. Diabetes affects and metabolic syndrome affects 2/3 of adults over 20, and by the time you get into around 50-year range, it's around 75%, and when you get around 70 years of age, it's 98%. So the entire population, pretty well, of adults, especially as you get older, have significant insulin resistance metabolic syndrome, and this helps to reverse it. Cod liver liquid is very important to lower cholesterol and normalize it. Vitamin A, D, E, and K, which are fat-soluble. Phospholipids are rebuilding solid organs. Very important. By the way, when you're rebuilding solid organs, omega cod liver liquid is very good, along with Nutrifos, Neurogent, and our copper Regenemax, because you need a copper ligand in order for you to rebuild any solid organ tissues. So, and you have to have adequate amounts of zinc, so we have our zinc, but not only Vitamin Mineral Max, but Minerals Plus, where there's additional forms of specialized trans amino acid chelate forms of zinc. You don't want the other ionic zinc because it competes with the same transport. This is far, far superior to any other product by any other company. Colon cleanse. You got to cleanse your lower bowel of toxins. In fact, if you don't get rid of the bacteria and toxins, they're going to reabsorb in your gut. So the longer you retain stool, the more bacteria can work on them and create re-release of toxins to be reabsorbed. As we mentioned earlier, CoQ10 and CoQ10 ubiquinol are very, very unique. If you want to maintain cellular energy, anti-aging, I recommend D-ribose. We have our new product, NADH. The combination of D-ribose and NADH resurrects your cell electron transport in your mitochondria, and acetyl L-carnitine called ALC-1000. There's also some in the Cognition Plus, but I make my drink, which I'll be picking up at the top of the hour in a few minutes, of Sports Energy Light, D-ribose, Brain Mag, and of course I put in the Mega Muscles amino acid powder because I'll be doing exercise after the show in a couple of hours, and you get your amino acid powder and your branched chain amino acids, and you have much stronger response to exercise. And by the way, the increased growth hormone microdose, Supernox to raise your levels of nitric oxide, DHEA, and of course diabetoline max. The DHEA and pregnenolone are very important to support your adrenal glands, and I also recommend the adrenal support, as well as when you're trying to support your adrenal glands, you want to buffer them against stress. You want to take adequate levels of magnesium glycinate, magnesium taurate. We have, of course, Gamma E Plus. It repairs your ion channels. It's another reason never ever to take what's called the gamma tocopherols as a separate thing. They're synthetic. You want to take the natural full tocotrienols. Ours is the most powerful and most highly absorbed in the marketplace. We have, of course, Gastro Heal to heal your stomach lining. It has zinc carnosine. From stem to stern, it'll heal esophagitis, pharyngitis, gastroesophageal sphincter problems, hiatal hernia, peptic ulcer, as well as colitis. It's very, very helpful. And we, of course, we have the glycemics formulas, which are to stabilize blood sugar. I recommend a Carbo Block in the morning, Carbo Block before meals, 2 capsules, and glycemics, a couple of small 3 or 4 ounces throughout the day will keep your blood sugar stabilized. Green Tea Select, and this is amazing. It'll burn off calories and weight, along with the Lipo Flush to mobilize calories in the fat tissue. It also is very powerful for grabbing a hold of biotoxins. Green Tea Select, as well as NutriDefense, which is the anhydrous catechin. These are great. Her Majesty's Royal Jelly. This restores your fatty acid metabolism in your mitochondria. It also generates pro-collagen, which helps to, along with Collagen Max. So the 2 big things for collagen are Her Majesty's Royal Jelly and Collagen Max. And for restoring fatty acid metabolism, it's the Vascucare Carnitine, CoQ10, CoQ10 Ubiquinol, and Her Majesty's Royal Jelly, D-ribose, and ALC-1000. Those are the ones that are going to restore energy and metabolism. We have, of course, the Inflamex, which is an anti-inflammatory. And I'll tell people, if you've got inflamed joints, tissues, interfascial scarring, carpal tunnel syndrome, tendinitis, you want to be on Inflamex. You also should be taking Tendon Mender if you have tendinitis. If you have joint problems, we recommend Joint Performance. I recommend 2 capsules of each twice a day. And then, of course, Collagen Max and Mountain Red Velvet. And, of course, we have the most powerful form of Mountain Red Velvet, 500 milligrams per capsule. And we are working to try to get licensure in Australia, so we will then soon have a form of it available that will contain a DR cap delivery system. So we're working on that. Leptin Metabolic. This is the first of its kind in the world. We bring it in from Europe. It normalizes leptin and insulin resistance, so for weight management, osteoarthritis, and lowering what's called hyperinsulinemic induced problems, including hyperglucagonemia. The glucagon is a response to high insulin, And the glucagon will make your liver and kidneys make sugar out of protein. So even if you're not eating sugar and you're on a George Cruz type low sugar, low carbo diet, you're going to make it if your glucagon level is high and your insulin's high. So we got to get that down. That's why the nutraceuticals are so important. You have to fix the metabolism, not just go on a diet. Lipoflush. This helps to mobilize fat out of fatty tissues. It also helps to protect your blood vessel walls. So conjugated linoleic acid, the research has shown that it actually protects your vessel walls from damage. So Lipoflush is very important. A couple soft gels along with the Omega Supreme twice a day, soft gels, and you're going to significantly cut the risk of clots, etc. And if you have atrial fibrillation, I recommend a magnesium glycinate and magnesium taurate. Very, very important to have both, along with forskolin, Colles forskolii, to stop atrial fibrillation. Malignoblock. This is an important thing to protect not only against cancer. We also recommend the ellagic acid and Malignoblock for protecting blood vessel walls. So, very important. Our Mega Muscles is the first power amino acid formula, most powerful in the world. We have the top scientists behind us that have made this for us. Mega Muscles, I recommend with the Sports Energy Light Drink or just right before exercise, just shoot it down with some water. It's a nice orange flavor. And those amino acids go boom into your muscles and dramatically increase your response. We have Malignant Arrest for cancer. This is developed by Dr. Sven Georgi, the developer of the Krebs cycle. We have many people now just taking our nutraceuticals alone for their cancer and have had recovery without chemo or going to Mexico or doing anything else. So imagine if you take all our nutraceuticals and then go for a dendritic vaccine, Colles vaccine, hyperthermia, and hyperbaric oxygen treatment with ozone, which I know is very helpful against cancer. We will be back in a moment with Ryan, and your questions 800-259-5791.